Hi everyone, Chris Natzke here with Black Belt Leadership Speaking and Coaching with your final installment of the Mind of a Champion Tip of the Week live on Facebook for 2020. And man, what a year it's been. You know, I think it's an understatement to say it's probably been for many of us the most challenging year we've ever experienced. But at the same time, it's really brought forth some areas of opportunity for us to really grow and expand if we choose to look at it that way. And if you're like me, I generally take this week between Christmas and New Year's, and I basically take a look at the years past and I analyze, what were my victories and what were my disappointments and what were the lessons learned. And then that's from that place is when I begin to put together my plans for the upcoming year. And you know what I've noticed, not only in myself, but other people that I work with, is oftentimes those dreams that we have for the upcoming year, we have them in a flash moment, but then we have a tendency to kind of push them down because maybe they don't seem practical, or maybe we've had experiences in the past where we have evidence that it's too big of a process to take on. And so today what I want to do is I want to challenge all of us, myself included, to dream big this year and really go for it in 2021. And as I was preparing this, I was reminded of a study that I read several years ago from NASA that they called the Longitudinal Test of Creative Potential. And what they did is they brought 1,600 4 and 5-year-olds together, and they tested them on their ability to be creative. And 98% of the 4 and 5-year-olds tested out as creative geniuses. 98%. And then they brought them back 5 years later and they tested them again, and that number dropped to 30%. And 5 years after that, that number dropped to 12%. And when they were tested finally as adults, that number had shrunk to 2% of them testing out as creative geniuses. Wow. I mean, what happened? I mean, a 96% decrease in creative genius potential. And I'm absolutely convinced that it really had nothing to do with their potential. It had everything to do with the thoughts and the beliefs that they had piled on themselves, that they had learned through their experiences throughout the years that told them that they just weren't up to the task of being creative. And so what I want to do is challenge all of us, and I've got 4 keys about being big this year, dreaming big, so that we can create what we want in 2021. And so here we go. So here's the first one. The first one is to simply dream big and to be big. And BIG is an acronym. So B stands for being bold in your vision. So when you're dreaming, when you're thinking about what you want to do, when it's coming to you in those moments of silence, just let them flow and allow yourself to have that luxury of dreaming. I mean, many times we can tend to push them away, but just allow it to come through. I stands for being imaginative and the steps you can take to make it happen. I mean, if 2020 taught me anything this year, it's to be really steadfast in my vision, but be flexible in my methods. So, it doesn't mean the things we wanted before or want now aren't possible. We just may need to be a little more imaginative about it. And then next, G stands for being giving with your gifts. If you're focused on your vision, you're imaginative in your efforts, and you are totally focused on really delivering for others, you just can't be stopped. So that's the first one. Number 2 is surround yourself with big people. Now, what do I mean by that? I don't mean large in terms of physical size, although it could be. I'm talking about people who have a big vision for what they're up to as well. Famous speaker and author Jim Rohn says that we're an average of the 5 people that we spend the most time with. So who are you spending time with? And are you spending time with people who are up to big things in their world and then as a result can challenge you to be up to big things as well? Because when we're in that environment, what we tend to do is we tend to assimilate it, whether people are diminished in their way of thinking or they're big and expansive. So surround yourself with big people. Number 3 is reframe your failures as learning. That one for me is oftentimes the toughest one to do, but I have to ask you, where are the times in your life where you've had some failures and you've learned from them? In fact, I can almost guess that most of you have a better recollection of where you failed and learned than when you succeeded, because that's where all the growth was. So, I mean, think about top athletes. An NFL quarterback, for instance, when they throw an interception, if they're still lingering in that interception when they go back into play, they are done. They are toast, right? But what we have to be able to do is let it go and learn from that experience so we can then transcend it. So number 3 is learn from our failures. And then number 4 is choose actions that scare you and take them and then repeat them, right? So those things that make your heart go pitter-patter, those things that take you out of your comfort zone, go ahead and take those and make that a standard practice, even if it's just one thing a day. Because when we do that, we start to expand our awareness for what's possible in our lives. And many times those things that we start out fearing the most, when we begin to lean into them, after a while, they just become common practice. So where can you take action on the things that scare you and then continue to repeat that and make that this year a regular part of your practices? So there you go, my friends. There are my 4 keys for thinking big this year in 2021 and creating the things that we want. And I'm going to say I'm challenging myself in this as well, because I know I can do a better job of this, and I'm challenging you to do the same. So it's been an absolute pleasure sharing all these this year. I love your comments. I love when you share. And if you've got ideas for things you'd like me to share in 2021, please go ahead and type that in the chat box and send that to me. And I hope these messages are helpful for you. And I hope that all of us are experiencing the best 2021 in the upcoming year. This has been Chris Natzke with Black Belt Leadership Speaking and Coaching, and I'll see you next year on the Mind of a Champion Tip of the Week.